Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
My name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, I have a question. Jeff.
Yeah?
How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. We just got a bunch of clothes for Pepper.
Okay.
So she's been trying on like sweaters and shirts all day.
Yeah. So listeners, I just want to point out that Jeff and I played Pathfinder a couple days ago on Roll20.
Oh yeah.
And I noticed a little ways in that Jeff had set up a webcam.
Oh yeah.
So that all of us could watch Pepper while we were playing.
Yeah. And I mean, she was just like snoozing most of it, but yeah, I have a little covered bed in my on my desk, and I set up a little webcam so that when I do any streaming, I can have her on the webcam so people can watch.
Sure, you're showing you're giving the audience what they want.
Yeah, she's the cutest. But yeah, she's wearing a little Hawaiian shirt with pineapples on it right now.
Okay,
it's super cute. Anyway,
that's pretty cool. Does it like button up, or is it just like go over her head?
I think it had little snap buttons on the front. Skylar put it on her, so I came upstairs and she was wearing it, and I just busted out laughing.
Yeah, we've got some shirts that we put on Super Hands. That we started putting shirts on him because he would had like a sore or a rash or something on his arm that he kept licking. Yeah. And after many attempts of like trying to bandage it up, and then he would get the bandage off, or the bandage itself would make things worse because it was on too tight or whatever. We just started putting shirts on him. Yeah. And as long as the sleeves are long enough to cover the rash, but not long enough to like interfere with his walking or whatever, he loves it. He'll like, we hold out the shirt. He'll like put his head in the right position. We'll put it on him, and
yeah, he likes it.
And he looks good too.
Yeah, he does look pretty good. He's a big boy. He just wears like full size shirts.
Yeah. Now I'm going to ask this question. I don't mean it as a joke, but do you have like doll clothes to put on her, or?
I mean, no. We just bought like dog clothes.
Because she's so little.
She's very tiny. Although it's kind of tough to size her because like. There's like small and extra small and XX and XXS or whatever. And like I think like some of a couple of the shirts we got her were like, we had to get medium, but because it wasn't like for dogs, it was more for cats.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I don't know. So it's a little tough finding like the right size. So like a couple things we got are a little tight on her.
Sure.
And a little restricting, but they're really cute. So we'll just be like, all right, we'll put this on you for a little bit, just for our sake, and then we'll take it off.
Well, cool.
But we got a little Argyle sweater for her, and it seems to fit her pretty good. It's just, it's something that like we'll want to have her wear like when it's cold and everything. So
sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I'm very happy for you.
Yeah, I get to dress up a dog today. So that was my day. How was yours?
Pretty good. So we had a friend coming in town to visit because one of our friends that moved with us to Tennessee and then stayed there when we moved back, despite our attempts to get him to move back with us. His sister was getting married in Detroit, so he came and stayed with us for a couple days. And then during that same time, Lisa just went to Las Vegas, so she was on a trip of her own.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I was working, so my friend was just kind of here by himself, hanging out with the dog, I guess.
Well, Super Hands is pretty good company.
Yeah. But our friend left today, and then Lisa and I made steaks because I usually make myself a big fancy steak when she's out of town. I didn't have time when she was out of town because I was working, but I did have time when she got back, so I made steaks for both of us. So I made us steaks, and then we went for a drive listening to podcasts.
Cool. That's fun.
Yeah, good. It was a good time.
Yeah.
You want to go ahead and get into this episode?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So, Jeff, I want you to imagine that you have you've gone to your local gaming store. Let's say this is pre-coronavirus times. You went to your local gaming store, and you're excited because the fantasy card game of your choice has just come out with a new expansion that combines it with another fantasy game of your choice as well. And so you're at the gaming store, and you're winning game left and right. You're playing, you're tapping some lands, and you're playing some spells. You're using some creatures to do some other thing, and then you're set to win this tournament that I guess it's a tournament. I didn't specify that. You're set to win this tournament, but then in your final match, you've got all your creatures out. You've got some mountains, some islands, whatever, and then your opponent plays a card that you were dreading. You were hoping that they wouldn't play this card because you knew this card would spell your doom.
Oh no!
But you watch as they bring the card down, and it hits the table. And you see the image on the card because they're holding it upside. It's right side up for them, but it's upside down for you. You don't see the text just yet, but you see the picture is a pile of gold, and there's like a sword sticking out, and there's like a shield and a giant gem, and you see that in the background of the picture, you see a scaled wing and maybe like a jet of fire, and you realize that they have played the card you have been dreading this entire time. And do you know what card that is, Jeff?
Which card is that, Gabe?
That card is the Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Dang it.
Because it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Apparently. No.
Right.
It's the Dragon Sword. I don't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh! All I know is that there's a card called the Blue Eyes White Dragon. It's a big deal.
Right.
Apparently.
Yeah.
But today's magic item was submitted by Larry D via email, and it is called Pentagram of the Ages. Now, I believe the text was not in this particular email, but another email he sent made me put the clues together. And I'm pretty sure this is a magic card from Magic the Gathering. And the text that he gave for this item was actually basically just magic text. So I had to kind of figure out what that would mean in a role-playing game sense.
Okay.
I believe that because I think the item itself is like you tap 4 mana or something in order to use it. So I had to think of like, well, what exactly would that mean? I think so. Anyway, here's what I came up with. So this is mostly Larry, but partly me. I had a little bit of hand in this. Pentagram of the Ages. It's a very rare item and requires attunement by a spellcaster. This pentagram takes the form of either an earring or a tattoo on the back or chest. When the bearer takes damage from any source, they may spend a reaction to negate all damage from that source by sacrificing 2 spell slots. If the bearer takes damage from multiple sources, even multiple attacks from the same target, this reaction only negates one of them. And that's it. Basically, it's just you can spend spell slots as a reaction to just take no damage from an effect, from an attack, from a spell, an effect, whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a pacify card or whatever.
Yeah. So I figured, because it's in the game, it's played as a reaction. Somebody uses something that deals damage to you. You then spend mana, which is a resource that you've spent the game so far kind of like building up and not using. Particularly, you have to not have used it this turn. And then I was thinking that spell slots could do that. As far as the number of spell slots, that was tough. 1 spell slot felt like way too little. 4 spell slots, because the card in question, you tap 4 mana. 4 felt like a lot because mana in Magic the Gathering is recovered a lot more easily than it is in D&D.
Yeah.
So I made it 2 and I made it cost a reaction. So I feel like eventually you're going to run out. Yes, you could do this a couple times and it would be really powerful those couple times, but 2 times you've used up all of your first level slots, assuming you're a high enough level to have 4, the maximum of 4 in the first place. And then if even if you do start using higher level slots, eventually you're going to run out. And you probably aren't even going to have all of your slots for this because you're going to be using your slots because they're spell slots. Why wouldn't you be using them?
Right.
So anyway, that's kind of what I came up with. If anybody out there thinks that is maybe it'd be better balanced to be more spell slots or fewer spell slots or something, just let me know.
Yeah.
This isn't being published in a book.
Sure. Yeah. No, because being able to negate, like as a reaction, just negate all damage from one attack is pretty powerful.
It's a pretty big deal, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, okay, like a big fireball's coming or something, or something got a crit on you, and you can just be like, no, never mind. So no, this is cool. I actually went in. I looked up the Pentagram of the Ages is a it's a fairly old card in Magic the Gathering. It's from let's see, 5th edition. Okay, it's pretty far back there. But yeah, it's just you tap and you prevent damage.
Sure. Here's the thing: if I had a magic item like this, here I guarantee you this is what would happen. An attack would come at me, and I would be like, I don't know if I should use my thing now or if I should save the spell slots, because I might take a bigger hit next round.
Right.
And then I'll finally end up using it on, because, let's say the ogre got a crit on me, and then the ogre is going to roll all ones. And then I will have spent spell slots to negate, 12 damage or something. And then.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how you balance it, but like, when do you take the reaction? When you get hit or when the damage is rolled?
That's a good question. Maybe that would need to be specified.
Yeah, I feel like maybe when the damage is rolled, just because, I mean, you are spending 2 spell slots. I mean,
sure, fair enough.
Like, negating damage is pretty powerful, but like using up 2 spell slots to do it is, I mean, I feel like it's worth it in certain situations, but I feel like if but you're right, like there might be a time where it's like it feels like you just wasted 2 spell slots, and you feel really bad about it. So I feel like it would be, when they roll damage, you can use your reaction to negate it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's pretty simple. I think I don't really know. The only things I can think of in D&D specifically that do things like this is there's like the uncanny dodge from a rogue. It's only for an attack, but if you are hit with an attack, you can spend your reaction to just reduce the damage by half, which, that's cool. It doesn't cost them anything. It just costs a reaction, and that's just a thing that they can do. So I figured, if that were a basis for creating a magic item that was meant to be very powerful, again, this item doesn't let you do the thing forever. It is pretty limited, especially if you are doing your job as a spellcaster using your spell slots.
Yeah.
So I felt like, even though it is a pretty hefty benefit, I thought the costs were hefty as well.
Yeah. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. But I like the idea of someone having, like, even if it is like a permanent, like a tattoo, just having a tattoo that when they take damage, it lights up with magic energy and then just gives them like an impenetrable shield or something.
Yeah. In the art on the card, it's like a, I don't know, it's like a plate-sized like ring.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, but
sure.
But yeah, it could just be like a ring or a medallion or something.
Mm-hmm. I think the lesson here is that magic cards are some great potential for cool magic items. So check those out.
Absolutely. I feel like somebody on the Discord like talked about that once. I want to say it was Peach Joy Pancakes, who was like said like using magic cards to come up with cool like ideas for like magic items and stuff.
Yeah, maybe.
It was a while back, but I do remember like somebody saying that, mentioning that, and like I'm like, I have a lot of cards. I could just go through and see like if I can come up with a bunch of cool magic items.
Yeah, go for it.
Converting the magic mechanics to D&D might be kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some fun stuff that you could end up with.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for our magic item for today. Once again, that was Pentagram of the Ages, submitted by Larry D via email. Thank you very much, Larry D. Jeff, if anybody else wanted to submit magic items for the Dragon's Horde, or they wanted to submit questions for our main segment, or stories for the Funeral Pyre, Retirement Village, Laboratory, anything else we're doing with our final segment, how would they submit those to us?
They could send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com or join us on our Interparty Discord at bit.ly/interpartydiscord.
That's correct. Now, we said last week that we are finished with our giveaway of the Crit 3 drawing, which we're very thankful to Justin from Crit Academy for setting that up, as well as setting up many other gives away over the last few years. But we teased another giveaway that we're going to be starting. And I can't remember if I said it last time or not, but this one is going to be for a physical reward. Not just one physical reward, mind you. We have 3 physical rewards, and we're going to be giving away one of them each of the next 3 months.
Ooh.
So we want to tell you about those today. So a few weeks ago, we had some good friends of mine, Alan and Delilah, were on here as guests. And they work with a company called Maumee River Leather. I put the link in the show notes before. I'll put in the show notes again this time. But they came to visit again a couple weeks ago. They were at a Ren fair in the area, and they were selling their leather goods and such. I think I put some pictures up on the Discord about that for anybody who was on there. And Alan suggested that we work out a deal that they would give us some stuff to give away for our listeners.
Cool.
So we have 3 handmade leather good things to give away to our listeners of this podcast. So I'm going to tell you about them right now. Now, I physically have 2 of them. The third one is currently being made, so I won't have any pictures of it just yet. Maybe by the time this episode goes out, maybe I will. Check the show notes. But the first thing that we're going to be giving away is a leather journal. So it's got a bunch of blank pages. You can use it as a journal. You can use it as notes for your campaign. You can use it as a spell book, whatever you want it for. It's a blank journal. Again, it is all handmade leather, and it has a red front with a stencil of a dragon on it. And I remember when I was trying to decide between this journal or a different journal, and I sent pictures to Jeff, and I was like, all right, Jeff, which one do I pick? And you were like, you have to go with the red one. So,
right.
Okay.
I was like,
that makes sense.
Gabe, why are you asking me this question?
Yeah. So I've got, again, it's a great leather journal is our first reward. That's going to be the first one that we're giving away. Mm-hmm. The second thing that we're going to be giving away is, it looks like a journal, slightly smaller than the other journal. This one looks like a journal, has a carved into the leather is a sort of like a sea dragon. It's like waves with a dragon. Check the show notes for pictures. It looks really cool. It's a dragon with like its tail going through the waves and stuff. But if you open it up, it's not actually a journal. It is actually a box with 4 small compartments in it. So you could put dice in there. You could use it as a dice tray if you want to. You can store dice. You can store miniatures, any other small anything that you want to keep in there. And you can keep it. And again, it just looks like a book. It looks like a journal. It's got a little binding on the end and everything, but the inside is a box, not a book.
Cool.
And then the third thing, which I don't physically have with me yet, is going to be a leather book cover. So it's going to be sized for 5th edition D&D rule books, or I presume most any other rule books of your favorite tabletop role-playing game. So it's going to be a cover that fits onto an existing book. And they pitched me some ideas for what the image on the front is going to be. And Jeff and I talked about whether it should be just a generic picture or if it should be our logo or something. It's not going to be the logo of our show. It's going to be maybe like an alternate logo, but it is going to say InterPartyConflict on the front. Sure. So it's just going to be a really cool leather, durable, reusable cover for any, D&D sized book that you want to use it for.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, those 3 things I thought were really, really cool. I wanted to get 3 different things. I could have just gotten like 3 journals or something, but I thought it would be cool to do 3 separate things. So as a result, the giveaway is going to be a little bit more complicated than it would have been otherwise.
Sure.
So what we're going to do, we had a physical giveaway. It was probably like 2 years ago by now, or was it? I feel like it was recently, but it couldn't have been. It had to have been a long time ago. Anyway, we did another giveaway a long time ago where we had you, the listener, anybody who wants to enter, we have you write us a review on whatever podcatcher of your choice. You can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Pocket Casts. I don't know what other things there are out there. Write us a review somewhere and then send us either a picture of the review or a link to the review or whatever, just some sort of proof that you did it. If you already wrote us a review in the past, awesome. You just need to send us some proof of it. We'll be doing the first drawing of that on Tuesday, September 14th. So yeah, get those into us. Whenever you can. If you've already entered the giveaway that we had before, you can just resend us the same thing that you sent us before. That's no big deal. But I will want you to specify which of the 3 things, or let's say you want to enter all 3 drawings, you can. But I wouldn't necessarily want to, if you just send us in one, I wouldn't want to give away, say, the journal to somebody who didn't want the journal. They wanted the book cover or something like that. So when you send us your review, let us know which one you want. If you want all 3, let us know. If you want 2 of them, let us know. Just be sure to specify so I can make a list for each individual one. If you win one of them, unfortunately, we're not going to be letting one person win more than one of them. So if you win the first one, you will be taken out of the running for the other 2.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess if you want all 3 of them, you got to. Well, I guess you got.
Yeah, you're not going to get all 3. Right. I guess if there's only one that you want, only enter for the one that you want.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, these are really cool. Like these.
Yeah. I've sent Jeff some pictures of them. Like I said, I'll be putting pictures up on the show notes. I'll probably post pictures in the Discord as well. They look amazing. They look really good. They're very well made. I'm good friends with the people that made them, so I know that a lot of effort and a lot of care went into making these. So, So of course, check out Mommy River Leather. If you don't end up winning any of these, you can still buy these exact things from their website. So check the show notes. I'll try to explain it all in better detail in there so that everybody can enter in a way that they know what they're doing. I'm just really excited to give away some of this cool stuff and hopefully get them some more customers because, they can use it and they make great stuff.
Yeah.
So again, big thank you to Alan and Delilah. And shoot, what was their other? There's another guy that works with them. I don't remember his name. I feel bad. But thank you to them for helping set this up. And good luck to everybody out there. Hopefully, you listener, hopefully you win the thing that you are hoping for.
Yes.
Do you love InterPartyConflict? The show you're listening to right now? Yeah! Then check out their Patreon at patreon.com/InterPartyConflict. You can help support the show and get tons of bonus content too. Access hundreds of outtakes, dozens of short stories, periodic updates about the behind the scenes of the show, personalized media, a monthly Roll20 game run by Gabe himself, and more. Every month, Green and Red Tier patrons get access to the bonus podcast InterPatronConflict, where Gabe and Jeff cover a wide variety of topics. Join right now and access the most recent episode, which might sound a little something like this. I don't know at what point that stopped being a thing, but now he is always in the bed, especially ever since we got a new mattress. He is always there. He is always taking up so much space. He is always pushing me out of the bed. Every single night I have woken up since we got this new mattress. Every single night I have woken up and fought with the dog for space.
Sometimes we go sleep in the living room.
Yes, sometimes.
Once I went to go sleep in the living room and Gabe was already in his chair asleep.
Yeah.
So it was, and so you got wasn't that within the first week of you guys getting the mattress?
Oh, he loves this new mattress.
So you guys had got a brand new mattress, and there was a night where it was just Superhand sleeping in the bed.
Yep.
The important thing is he's happy.
Once again, go to patreon.com/InterPartyConflict to help out the show and access all that bonus content today. And then one more quick thing to check out the other podcasts on the Crit Nation Fellowship. Check out Crit Academy, critacademy.com. Justin, Ian, and Austin make new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. Check out Brute Force and Ignorance. They're an actual play podcast on the network. They've been coming out with new episodes recently, so check them out. And of course, check out the other podcasts that are on potentially indefinite hiatus. Check out D&D Character Lab and check out the Kind GM podcast. Enough of all the admin, enough of all the giveaway. Let's get into some questions, Jeff.
All right, our first question comes from Josh on email, and they ask, would allowing more magic item attunements be broken?
Yeah, so at the moment in D&D 5th edition, when you get magic items, they either require attunement or they don't. I'll get more on that in a few minutes. Mm-hmm. And then at the moment, you can only be attuned to 3 magic items is the default. Anything more than that, and I think you have to unattune yourself to one of them. And then there are certain classes, such as the Artificer, I think, gains the ability to attune to additional items.
Right. So the added thing with the Artificer one is like their 20th level ability is they get a bonus to their saving throws per item that they're attuned to.
Yeah. So if you are a high level Artificer and you end up getting that ability, it can be a big deal how many things you're able to attune to.
Right. Yeah. So like that's the one thing where it might be like broken, but
sure.
I don't like in general, I don't know if that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
One, there's only so many like slots you can have magic items in.
Okay.
So like there's, like, so like if they're like wearable items.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, like if it's like an activated item or something,
you only got so many actions.
Right, exactly. So there's already a bunch of things in place that kind of keep this from getting too broken.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, I mean, like, people make their own magic items, and I don't know the number of magic items that are like attuned but don't have to be worn and have like passive bonuses, like any sort of like passive effects of magic items. Like I can't, like, off the top of my head, I can't think of any. So like I don't think that this is going to be like a huge game breaking thing.
I agree. The thing is, let's just take Artificer out of the equation. Let's say you're playing a game without an Artificer. In a world where there is not a class that specifically gains the ability to attune to more things and then gets bonuses for being attuned to more things.
Right.
Artificer aside, I really don't think that this is going to be, it's not going to break your game. Definitely. The thing is, I mentioned like some items require attunement and some don't. There isn't really any rhyme or reason as to which items require attunement and which ones don't. Now, you would think, okay, more powerful items require attunement. Therefore, attunement is sort of meant to like limit your access to more powerful items. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there's uncommon magic items. So like on the lowest level of rarity that, for permanent items, there are uncommon items that require attunement, and there are legendary items that don't require attunement.
Yeah.
So whether something requires attunement really just seems to be, whoever created that item, did they think that it should be attuned or not? And so what's the difference between saying, okay, you can be attuned to 10 items instead of 3, or just giving your players a bunch of items that don't require attunement? It's the same end result.
Right, yeah. Like, yeah, again, I can't think of the specific reason why attunement exists.
Yeah.
Other than, like, it is kind of a neat, like, it's like a neat flavor mechanic. It's like...
Yeah, I like the idea of becoming attuned to an item. Like, you spend an hour mentally focusing on it or whatever, and when you become attuned to it, you like learn some of its abilities or something. That's cool. But again, just like rules wise, there's no rubric to it. There's no way for me to look at an item and say, oh yeah, that one should require attunement, that one shouldn't require attunement. It seems like it's kind of an arbitrary tax put on certain items. And if you're just using the items in the book, maybe there are some combinations that might become too powerful, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I feel a lot of people are probably making some of their own magic items to give to their players, some unique things out there. And it's just a guess whether that item that you're giving them should require attunement or not. Yeah. So since it is so arbitrary, I feel like there isn't really any way to gauge this. So I don't really think it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's probably mostly a thing for like, so you're not like passing things around in the party as much.
Sure.
Wasn't there like a ring or something that you had that only your character could use to like, but that was like a way to make it cheaper in 3rd edition?
Yeah, so in earlier editions, in 3rd edition specifically, there were in the magic item creation guidelines, which there isn't in 5th edition. There isn't really any sort of, unless I'm mistaken, there aren't really any spots that are like, if you're going to make a magic items, here's the costs that should go with X ability and so on. And one of the things that you could do was you could make a magic item only work for a certain race or a certain class. And then a lot of people would stack these things on top of each other in order to make them only work for their character. And in the books, that was given as a cost-saving measure. So something cost less if it only worked for certain characters. Mm. A lot of people misinterpreted that, and a lot of people said that made it more powerful rather than less powerful. But Steve made a magic item in a 3rd edition game that only worked for him. And we came to a point where it would have been really useful if someone else could have used that magic item, but they couldn't. So we were able to see that the limitation, it did justify a decrease in cost because it was cutting off usability from other people in the party.
Right. So yeah, I can see attunement being like that sort of a thing where it kind of makes the item a little less powerful because you can't just hand it off to somebody.
Sure.
And then also like I think with the magic item rules in 5th edition, like when you attune to something, it basically it fits you, like if it's like, because I don't think you have to get stuff like sized.
Sure. I mean? I think that's just a quality of magic items. I don't think that's anything specific to being attuned. I could be wrong about that though.
Sure. Yeah. I wasn't sure if that's like, maybe that's just, they wanted like a mechanical reason. For like, you're attuning yourself to the magic of the item, therefore it is fitting itself to you. Sure. It's part of the attunement process or something. I'm sure there's some reason for it. Like it, maybe a handful of the items they did have it in mind. Like, okay, we don't want people having multiple of these or too many of these or whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, there's, like you said, there's already limits on how many slots you can be wearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Yeah. Like, again, it's just, is this going to break your game? I don't think so. Sure. I mean, if you're giving your characters enough items to where this comes up, like, mm-hmm. I'm sure, it's the potential for your game being broken I don't think it's going to come from, I don't think adding another magic item is going to do a big deal. It'd be a big deal.
Sure. And here's the thing. As the DM, you do have control over what magic items your players get. So, I mean, if you are concerned about them having too many magic items, just give them fewer magic items.
Sure. Yeah. And
they're not going to have 5 items attuned to them if you only gave them 4 items that require attunement. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so I think this is more like a tool for the DM to gauge or to like kind of, to control the number of magic items that players have. So like, maybe you do want to throw out a bunch of magic items, but you don't want them to be able to use as many at once. So, you might even say like, okay, you can only have 1 attuned item or something if you want it to be like a real rough go of it. If you want to limit the number of items that people can have, you can just change it. Yeah. Or if you don't really care about it, just say, this magic item, which would normally need attunement, doesn't need attunement. Mm-hmm. You can change the rules of the magic item if you want.
Sure. One thing that when Josh asked this question, I think he did come up with the idea of possibly tying it to an item's rarity or something like that. Maybe sure. if you did want some sort of limiting factor, maybe say one item, you can be attuned to 1 item per rarity. So like 1 legendary, 1 very rare, 1 rare, 1 uncommon, and 1 common, or more 3 uncommon, 2 rare, 1 very rare, and 1 legendary, or something.
That's a pretty neat idea.
I would even say, if you are going to do that, I would just throw out, maybe just don't even include artifacts. I feel like artifacts, by their very nature, feel like they shouldn't fit into any sort of a mold that the rest of the items do.
Yeah. So like, if you're going to give the players an artifact, you're well aware that that's going to be what it's going to do.
It's like, it's again, like you have control over what magic items are put in there. Even if you do allow the players to buy magic items, that's still your decision to make. So I really don't see this ever. I don't see this ever like getting away from you. You know what I mean?
Right.
If it's going to become a problem, you're probably going to notice it way ahead of time. And that's a big if. I really don't think it's going to break anything.
All right, our next question comes from Jason E. on Discord. They ask, when a spell or effect compels a player to do something, should the DM tell them what they do, separate from the player's agency, or should they be free to interpret it as their character?
Yeah, so let me kind of explain. This was me wording something that Jason asked me when we were playing our Pathfinder game the other day.
Yeah.
He was saying, so let's say one of the players is dominated, and I don't know, let's say like some evil king or something dominates a player and compels the player to, I don't know, bow to them or in some way sing the praises of this king. Should the dungeon master say, your character says, and then, your character says, King Jehoshaphat is the greatest, and your character does a dance and whatever. Or should the DM tell the player, you are being magically compelled to praise the king? What do you do? And then let the player do it from their perspective of what the character would do. Mm-hmm. I think this was inspired by something on the Glass Cannon podcast. I've not listened to the Glass Cannon podcast, so this isn't a spoiler because I don't know what happens on this show. I might even be thinking of the wrong show. But I think there was some character who was compelled to do something, and the player in question had an issue because the DM said what the character did rather than letting the character, because then the player was like, oh, my character wouldn't do it that way. He would do this instead.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, like, the idea is like you're dominated or whatever, and like, so you're going to be doing something that is not what you want to do, but it's not necessarily going to be out of character.
Yeah.
So like, yeah. So rather than the DM just like writing the whole script of what your character does to an exact point.
Sure.
Yeah, you might want to have your character put its own personal spin on it.
Yeah. I've got a couple different, like, I could see this going both ways.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, I guess part of it is going to hinge upon how mature are the players and how willing are the players to go outside of their personal comfort zone as far as their character is concerned. Because I know that there are players out there who, if a king, let's say a corrupt king dominates the player or dominates the player character, and then the DM tells the player, you're being dominated and you are being compelled to sing the praises of the king. I know that there are a lot of players who would not like that, would not like their character being forced to do something that they don't want to do, and so they would purposely do a bad job of it. Like they would say, okay, yay, King Fartwad over there is the stupidest, greatest king ever. And then play it up as, no, my character is being rebellious, even though they are under a magical compulsion. There are players who would do that.
Even though I failed my will save.
Correct.
I'm refusing to face the consequences.
Right. There was a point in the first campaign of the Adventure Zone where Travis, the player who I would definitely peg as one of these players that would resist the DM telling them what their character does. And he basically, it's not that he got dominated, it's that something very similar to domination happened. And the DM just said, oh, Magnus does this. And the player, without even like questioning why his character was suddenly doing something out of character, the player just said, Magnus doesn't do that. And like me as a player and as a DM was immediately like, dude, clearly something is clearly some sort of compulsion is in effect here. Obviously your character wouldn't do that. That's why it's so weird and off-putting that the DM did this. That's part of the impact. That's intentional. Yeah. So if you are dealing with players who understand sometimes things are going to happen that I don't like happening to my character, which, hey, if that's not something that you're going to be cool with, that's something that can be worked out in session 0. That's a different discussion whether a player should be okay with this or not. But if you think that your players are not going to be okay with this, if you have a player that you think would try to, passive aggressively refuse to do the thing that they're compelled to do, then maybe in that case, it makes more sense, whether it's right or not, I guess. It makes more sense for the DM to just, very simply say, your character does this. Even though that's weird, I know it takes away from player agency, but that's kind of the point of charm and dominate spells. They do take away agency of the characters. That's what that's for. It's meant to feel bad. It's meant to bother you when it happens. You're not supposed to be okay with it when it happens. However, if the players are more game, if they are more game to play along with whatever the DM is doing, and I'll say, my personal preference, players play along. Trust your DM to not do things that's going to make you, the player, upset. But if the DM does something like this, trust them. Trust that they're doing something that is in service of the game. They're doing something that is within the rules. Just play along. You may not like it, but the DM probably doesn't like it when you charm the shopkeeper and then have to, do whatever. So just play along. Everybody, just play along. That is my suggestion. If you don't like that, fine. Just set that up in session 0. Make it clear at the beginning. If we ever come into domination or whatever, if that ever comes up, let's deal with it this way. That's definitely something the group can discuss as adults, and they can come up with a way that everybody's going to be happy with. So my personal preference is that it's fine if the DM tells them to do whatever, but if the players are willing to play along, it can be even cooler if the DM slides them a note or whatever, and then they have their character do something that to the other people in the group might just seem like a normal thing. Now, here's another counterpoint to that. Here's another way to do this. Maybe it's intended to be weird when suddenly the player does something that is out of character. If I don't know how magic works. This is just me throwing out an idea for how the flavor of this, the theming, the story of this ability could work. Let's say I'm dominating somebody. I don't necessarily know what they would and wouldn't say. So if you guys go into the throne room and then suddenly the curmudgeonly fighter is dancing around and is being like, oh, King Jehoshaphat is the greatest. Maybe the other players can then make an insight check and be like, hey, wait a minute. That's not what he would have said. You can use that even if the players don't like that. If that's the kind of thing that player would not like, that's fine, because the players are meant to think that it's meant to be off-putting. It's meant to be suspicious. If everything was just, hey, do this exactly as your character would do it, then it's going to be less noticeable and less likely that the other players are going to catch on. Maybe that's the intent. Domination wouldn't be as meaningful if it was easy for everybody around you to realize. But I mean, look at any TV show or movie where two characters have been body swapped and one of the characters is trying to pretend to be the person that they're in the body of. Mm-hmm. It's always hilarious because they're always doing everything wrong.
Sure.
So trust your players trust your DM, and then also have some fun with it. Don't say, no, my character wouldn't do that. Play along and have fun with it. Do something that, with the DM's input and everything, do something that the other players are going to be like, that's a little weird. Has he always liked King Jehoshaphat? I don't know.
And I think a lot of it is going to come down to the very specific mechanics of whatever spell is being used.
Sure.
Although again, it's the DM's discretion of what exactly is happening anyway. It could be a complete, could just be a more of a plot point kind of a thing.
If this were a 3rd edition game, I would say it's a difference between charm and dominate. But in 5th edition, dominate is explicitly a charm effect. So
right, yeah. So yeah, it might be more specific to the rules of the spell itself.
Sure.
Or it could be exactly what you're trying to get them to do. Like if you're trying to get them to attack their friend or something, that's
mm-hmm.
just say just give them the. Give them the goal, give them what they're going to do in the end, and then let them interpret it how they want to. I feel like if it's something simple, like keep the command as simple as possible so that they can spin it, they can put their own their character's flavor on it, however they want.
Sure.
Just, rather than like having them do this very complicated things, like have it be very specific and complicated, so it feels so off character that it is sort of jarring. But that could be the point, like you said. It could be that could be the point that it's like this is supposed to be off and weird, and it's something that the party's going to notice and do something about.
Sure. So yeah, just to recap, I think that depending on whether the players are going to be, and I hope this doesn't come across as being like insulting or derogatory, but like if the players are going to be mature about it, then the DM should do whichever one is going to be more appropriate to the situation. If the DM does want it to be more obvious that something's going on, then yeah, just say what the player does, and then the other players can be like, oh, that was weird. Or if they do want it to be more like just natural and something the other players might not necessarily notice immediately, then yeah, like slide them a note or whatever, or even just tell them, you're being compelled to do this, and then leave it up to the player. If the players aren't going to be mature about it, I mean, I guess it's still just kind of do whatever the DM feels right. But I think that that's something that should be worked out ahead of time. Taking away agency from players sucks if they're not cool with it.
Yeah.
So you should have a talk earlier, if not in session 0, a session or 2 before it actually becomes relevant. Make sure the players are cool with it, and then just do whatever feels right for the situation, I guess.
Yeah.
And everybody, just play along. Just have fun.
Yeah.
Obviously, your character wouldn't do that thing, but your agency is being taken from you. That's the point of the ability.
All right. Our next question comes from Dr. Taco 86 on Discord, and they ask, "What makes a good trap to you? What's the best trap you've sprung on your players or had sprung on you?"
Yeah, I haven't really had here's the thing. I really don't deal with traps often. Especially more complex traps. I mean, other than just like a pit trap or a, poison dart trap or whatever. I don't really have a ton of experience with traps.
Mm-hmm.
But whether it's in a role-playing game or whether it's in a video game or whatever, the best traps, in my opinion, are the ones that you absolutely would have noticed if you weren't trying to rush.
Sure. Yeah. The ones that are like hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like it makes perfect sense that this door would be trapped. If I hadn't been just running ahead to try and get through the next door, I would have thought, oh, this is clearly a trap door. But
right. Yeah.
I didn't, so I got killed by it.
Yeah. Something that's like it's not necessarily hidden behind a skill check. It's hidden within the description of the room.
There you go. Yeah.
So yeah, like you describe this room, but it's described in such a way that it's like, okay, like, and then there's a statue pointing off into the into the east direction or something. I don't know. And it's like, it's like, but you didn't notice that statue was pointing towards a wall or something. I don't know.
Sure.
It's just, hide it within the descriptors, not behind just like a high spot check or something.
Yeah. Like skill checks are fine, whatever. If it can be found with a perception check, cool, I guess. But a trap where if you sit and think about it for a second, you can point and be like, I think that's a trap right there. Yeah. Those are the best traps in my opinion. Yeah. And it's always, even when you get hit by them, it's still satisfying as a player to be like, dang it, I should have known that was a trap.
Sure, yeah. Ones that you're like laughing about because you're like, oh, shoot, that was, Yeah. Obviously, I can't think of a good example.
Well, so I do have a good example in our Pathfinder game that we played a few weeks ago. We're in the dungeon is basically like a giant tower that the top of which at one point shot a green beam of energy that summoned a bunch of undead at the nearby town.
Uh-huh.
And that alone was terrifying when it happened. But we're going through the dungeon and we come into this room where there are a bunch of paintings. If I'm remembering the room correctly, there are a bunch of paintings of the tower, and in front of them are like little dioramas of a nearby city. And one or more of the paintings of the tower shot a beam of that green magic energy at us and nearly killed my character. We actually had to figure out the rules on how much damage it takes to kill someone in one shot in Pathfinder 2e. That's how much damage it did.
Yeah, it was a pretty nasty trap.
Don't worry, I'm all right. My character was fine. But if we had sat and thought about it, we probably could have figured out something is weird about this. The tower shot a big green beam of magic energy. These are all paintings of the tower. We should be prepared for something to shoot out of one of these and hit us.
Right. At the very least, yeah, we should be like, on guard.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm always on, especially in this campaign, I'm always on guard when we enter a new room, but I notably was not on guard when the thing hit me. So
sure.
So that's on me, I guess. So yeah, I don't really have a ton of other experience. I do have one other example of a weird trap, but I will get to that later in the episode.
Oh, okay.
So I think that'll do it for our regular, unless you had any other questions.
No.
To say. Okay. I think that'll do it for our regular questions for today, but we do still have our social media questions. Our last social media question was, are there any languages you always make sure your characters can speak? And I think I mentioned that in some previous campaign, we all made sure that all of our characters knew Sylvan or something.
Right. It was just, something we can maybe use as like a secret language kind of a thing. Not like super duper common.
Sure.
And then I think beyond that, like, I don't know, I just always like the core races. I always try to have their languages just so like, I don't know, just like more likely to run into NPCs of the core races. So they're, so it'd be good to have their languages.
Sure. And, I think I said I often would try to have characters with either celestial or infernal or both if possible, just because I think they're cool. What sort of creatures are you going to encounter that speak those?
Right. I think beyond that, maybe like Draconic, just because it's like Draconic is the language of arcane magic. And then
so it's the language of dragons. Who doesn't want to be able to speak with a dragon?
Right, exactly. There's Dungeons and Dragons. So like if you're gonna come across a dragon, it'd be nice to be able to talk to it, because like maybe you could, you're either looking to kill a dragon or a dragon
or make
is
a deal with a dragon.
Right, yeah. So like if you can talk reason with it.
Yeah. But here's a question, Jeff. How do you speak with a dungeon? Over on Facebook, Jake F. says, I really enjoy Thieves' Cant and the implication of criminal banter. My goal in every party is to recreate the scene from Ocean's 12. And Jake put a link to, there is a pretty cool scene in Ocean's 12 where the characters they're talking and they're having a conversation, but there is very clearly some completely different subtext in what they're saying. And one of the characters just doesn't know how to do it, just doesn't know how to say what they're trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
So check that out. It's a pretty good scene. Sean M says, I sometimes trend the other way and have my characters not very good at speaking and sometimes not speaking at all. And it's difficult to do, but that's a thing people try to do.
Yeah.
Darren W says, yes, besides common, usually Elvish, Orcish, Dwarven, or Abyssal are my main go-to languages. One of those is not like the others, I will say. Mainly because I know the DM I first had used these as a basis. Plus, who knows when you'll need to talk to an abyssal creature and insult them in their own tongue.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Over on Reddit, Alistar the Minotaur says, there's no specific language that I make sure my character can speak. However, I almost always try to make sure I speak multiple languages. That character requirement has very rarely, if ever, actually come into play now that I think about it. And yeah, same here with my Celestial and Infernal. Never needed it. Never has it come up except in something that I could have easily circumvented some other way.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, it's fun. Arcanist Winterbrand says, I almost always pick up Knoll. It's obscure, but when it comes into play, man, does it feel good. I don't think I've been in a campaign that didn't have an encounter with Knolls. It's nice to know what your enemies are saying as you mow them down. P.S. Knowing any monster language is good for this reason.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I never want to like meta game and be like, okay, we're definitely going to be fighting a bunch of goblins, so I'm going to take goblin.
Sure.
But I mean, like if you're sort of like loosely metagaming where you're like, goblins are pretty common enemy, I'm just going to take goblin just because.
Sure. Over on Twitter, we didn't get any, and on Discord, Peace Joy Pancake says common. Joking aside, though, usually celestial if there is any legitimate reason my character would know it. I feel like most parties have many languages covered and may take abyssal and infernal too, but celestial is often overlooked in my experience. So I like to make sure we have that too, though to be honest, it's never come up yet. Yeah, that's true. Sunfish says, I like to grab Sylvan when I can because among creatures that don't speak common, it seems like Fae are some of the few that might be worth talking to instead of simply killing or running from. And yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, yeah, like they're, I mean, like Fae are like, you know, like tricksters and stuff like that. So like maybe you can, I don't know, talk your way out of a fight.
Sure. That is important to keep in mind. Like, what sort of creatures might I be able to talk my way out of a fight with?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah. Like if you're a character who is like your charisma type and like you're going to be using like deception or diplomacy or something like that, you want to take languages of creatures that you feel like you actually have a chance of talking your way out of.
Or if your character is stealth based, what sort of creatures would you want to be able to overhear?
Sure. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Debrasaur says, Undercommon. The Underdark is a very large and surprisingly easy to get to place. Yeah, that's true. Definitely need that.
Yeah, there's always like tunnels to the Underdark. They're just everywhere.
They're just lousy with tunnels to the Underdark.
Yeah, it's like every other dungeon I go into has an entrance to the Underdark.
No, seriously, so many adventures that I've run or read through are like, you know, if the players are interested, there are tunnels to the Underdark in the basement, but that's not covered by the scope of this adventure. And it's like, how easy is it to freaking get to the Underdark?
Sure.
Anyway, Dustin says, Draconic Language of Ancient Magic.
Yeah.
That's good. And then the Beverage Tea says common. So, yeah, I get it.
Make sure you get that one.
Sure. So that was our last social media question. Our next social media question is, what is the most memorable trap you've encountered in a game? So you said, Jeff, that you don't have any examples that you can think of off the top of your head.
Nothing I can think of. I mean, like, there's plenty of iconic ones that I can think of, but like, sure, like Tomb of Horrors.
Yeah,
that's lousy with iconic traps. A lot of them infuriating.
Yeah, I hate those. The example I was going to give is in the first adventure of the Shackled City. The first adventure is called Life's Bazaar. There was a previous episode where I just could not remember that for the life of me. I probably edited it out, but listeners, it was there. Trust me. So the first adventure of that is in a big gnomish city, and there are abandoned gnomish city. And there are tons of traps, tons of all sorts of stuff. One of the traps that shows up many times in this adventure is, I can't remember what it's called, but the idea is it's a pit trap, but you fall into some spikes. But then after you've fallen into the spikes, the trap door closes, and then the entire room turns sideways where there are more spikes on the side wall. And then it turns back the other direction where there are more spikes on the other side wall. So you fall in, you hit spikes, it turns, you hit spikes, it turns again, you hit spikes, and then I think the trapdoor opens again. So, or maybe it doesn't. It probably stays where it is because then more people can mistake it for solid ground and fall in. So it shows up many times. There's even like a diagram of what it looks like in the book. So it's memorable to me. I don't recall if anybody ever fell victim to it. But it's there. It's there, and someone put a lot of work into it, both in-game and out-of-game.
Right, yep.
So that's the most memorable trap that I can think of. So yeah, I'm not sure how many people to expect to reply to this. I don't know if everybody's encountering traps but me, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, you're the only one falling into them.
Maybe. I was the only one hit by that green death ray from the picture.
Right.
So yeah, that'll do it for our questions for today. But before we close out, let's wind down, let's relax, let's take a deep breath. Let's remember those who have come before us, who have given their lives that we may have a better world to live in, possibly falling into a pit trap that then turns on its side and then turns on its other side. As we toss another log onto the funeral pyre. Today's funeral pyre was submitted by Alistar the Minotaur via Reddit. And he says, Johnny the Arcane Trickster and the legendary Inquisitor crew of the Kachu clan joined their friends defending the residents of the town from an undead horde. During the siege, a terrible creature whose very blood was flammable caught fire.
Ooh.
The resulting explosion incinerated both heroes. The battle was won, but at what cost? And so, I guess let's raise a glass in memory of Johnny the Arcane Trickster and the legendary Inquisitor crew. As we say, is something burning? Clink. All right, that'll do it for today. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Horde, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com. Join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict. We're on Reddit at r/interpartyconflict. We're on our Interparty Discord, or on Twitter at InPartyConflict. Check those out for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. And if you leave us a review and then send it to us, you can win one of 3 awesome leather goods from Maumee River Leather. So please leave us reviews and please send those to us. I don't remember if I said it earlier, but if I didn't, we'll be doing the first drawing of that on Tuesday, September 14th. So yeah, get those into us. Get those into us whenever you can. Anyway, if you'd like to support the show monetarily, check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell us about FriendQuest.
FriendQuest is a YouTube channel where you can watch us play video games.
There you go. Also head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show, what you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games, courtesy of the great people over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. So, Jeff, until next time,
I am the Inquisitor Crew Kachu.